Hello lovely people, and welcome back to this week's new reading vlog. I have 4 books on the list. Mainly I'd like to get to everything but Shark Heart because that is not actually a 2024 pick. That was one of the nominees for the Lolly at the end of the year, and I chose that one because the winner of the Lolly did not interest me. So I'm gonna start in with The Fury by Michaelides first. It is the BookTube Book of the Month pick, and it's also the oldest book that I have because I got it as an add-on in January. I'm quite excited because The Mayor of Maxwell Street, I've also talked about on my channel, is an anticipated read for me. And then what's the other one? Oh yeah, my March pick, Kill for Me, Kill for You, is also an anticipated read. Just full of books that I've been anticipating, and let's catch up on my Book of the Month books. If for some reason you have never heard of Michaelides, I think it's Michaelides. I listened to the Book of the Month podcast virtual book tour for this book in February, and in anticipation of starting this book sooner than I thought. He is the author of The Silent Patient and The Maidens. I really enjoyed The Silent Patient, highly anticipated The Maidens, and ended up not liking it. I believe I unhauled it. I got it from Book of the Month a few years ago, last year. I'm thinking it's kind of like a whodunit type of situation. This is a tale of murder. At its heart, it's a love story, isn't it? Lana is a reclusive ex-movie star. At one point was the most famous woman in the world. Every year she invites her closest friends to escape the cold, frigid English weather to spend Easter on her idyllic private Greek island. I guess our main character, our narrator, is Elliot Chase. All of the friends are trapped overnight, and their friendship is revealing a lot of these secrets and hatred and desire for revenge. What followed was a game of cat and mouse, a battle of wits full of twists and turns, building to an unforgettable climax. The night ended in violence and death. It's just under 300 pages, so I'm hoping that I could get through it kind of quickly. Let's get into it. I've been reading more of The Fury, and I've reached part 3, or act 3 rather, and it's quite interesting. I feel like it really started to get into it during act 2 because act 1 was just about getting to know the characters, their relationship to each other, and mainly Lana, who has invited them all to Aura, the Greek island. I feel like Elliot, the narrator, is more of an unreliable narrator because he's very biased. He loves Lana. They have been friends for a long time, but he hates Lana's husband, Jason. He has this weird complicated competition with Kate for Lana's affection, so it's very weird. In Act 2 we found out who died. Elliot did say this is more of a whodunit as opposed to a whodunit, but it's sort of giving me Glass Onion, Hercule Poirot. I have my suspicions of who it might be, but what I found out at the end of Act 2 makes me think that it might be a little bit more Knives Out, Glass Onion, that series, so I'm interested to see how it's going to go. Like I said, it's just under 300 pages and I'm over 50%. I'm hoping I can finish it quite soon. Hello! I'm not sure if you can hear the humidifier going, but my throat was getting really dry again, so I've been keeping her on. Yesterday, I actually ended up finishing The Fury on my commute. I was surprised, but not really because it's under 300 pages, and I was also reading it before work because I just wanted to read more, which I love that feeling. I'm giving this book 4 stars. I quite enjoyed this. I gave The Silent Patient 5 stars and ended up giving The Maidens 2 stars. So I was so nervous with this one because I really want to like him, especially after giving such a high rating to his first book, which I know is a really hard feat to overcome. I really liked this, and it was such an interesting way of being told, it's a whodunit or whydunit, as Elliot had said, because he's our sole narrator and he's kind of writing this book for you, the reader. He was kind of oh, actually, let me backtrack. Actually, I might be a little biased because I don't like these people. It was kind of fun in that way and figuring out what was gonna happen. I did call it a little bit. There were some reveals where I was oh my god, these people. They're not very likable people, and especially in a situation where they all start to accuse someone being on an island and only one person being dead. You see all of the dark parts, all the nasty parts of a person. This was so much fun. Before getting into my next book, look at my sweatshirt. Got it from Etsy. It says Fly or Die. The photos on Etsy showed this to be a little bit more golden, which I'm a little sad by, but the seller was really nice because my building has a package leaf, so they sent me a new one. I'll link it down below if you like. It is really cozy and it's actually embroidered in. My next book is going to just be my February Book of the Month pick. The Mayor of Maxwell Street. It's quite long. It's over 500 pages, like just over. I'm debating whether or not I want to split this up within 3 days or 2 if I could do it. The font is like kind of large, so I don't think it should take too long. Avery Cunningham, the author, has a Spotify playlist out for this book. It's not very long, but I think that would be cool to kind of listen to it since she's the one who curated it. Let's start reading. I'm now strongly considering DNFing the Mayor of Maxwell Street. Just every couple of pages I find myself reaching for my phone to scroll or to look at reviews just to see if I'm like missing something. So I'm gonna take a break by listening to the Book of the Month podcast episode with Avery Cunningham just to see if hearing the background of her process, of her going into depth about the characters in the story will help me a little bit more. Otherwise, I am gonna start in on Kill for Me, Kill for You, which also has a podcast episode. Alright, I made the decision to just DNF it because I was listening to the podcast and nothing was even catching me then and intriguing me, which is what I was hoping for. I could tell that Avery Cunningham really did her research, and this sucks because it was not only a debut novel, but one of my anticipated reads. I DNF'd it at like page 56, just didn't do anything to draw me in. I didn't think that I was like catching on to anything, and I felt like getting into the plot or just like the setup was really boring. I was going to listen to the podcast episode for Steve Cavanaugh for Kill for Me, Kill for You, the next book that I'm going to be starting, but I just realized that Book of the Month only posts previews of their episodes now all of a sudden, and they want you to listen to it in their app, which I have. That's kind of annoying because I want to rack up a lot of listened minutes on my Spotify. I think I'm gonna listen to a little bit of this just to see what's going on and then start into reading. Give myself a little break so that I don't fall into a slump really hard. To kill for. Been reading Kill for Me, Kill for You. I'm flying through this. It's nearing 12 a.m. at the moment, but I kind of want to just stay up to finish it, which is crazy because I just started reading this book today. This book did take a little bit of a turn, and I'm also realizing that I did not talk about what this book is about. Kill for Me, Kill for You is kind of works like Strangers on the Train. Two strangers meeting to kill somebody for the other person. Both Wendy and Amanda have had their loved ones taken away from them, murdered without any justice served. They are grieving and they're unable to move on. They come up with this plan to kill the person for each other and seek revenge that way. There's another storyline of Ruth, who was attacked in her home. Her husband Scott, who wants to do anything for her to make her feel safe, but Ruth is unable to move on and she's haunted by the blue eyes of this killer. I'm not yet sure how those two storylines are going to connect. I feel like I'm over the 50% mark, or I'm just nearing it now, so I'm hoping that those two worlds will kind of collide. There are different POVs. It's mostly between Amanda and Ruth. Sometimes there's a POV from Ruth's husband Scott, as well as a detective, Farah. He reminds me of Richard Belzer from SVU. Detective John Munch. He kind of gives me that vibe in terms of looks, like very long time cop. He bleeds blue. He's been in the force a long time. I definitely am really enjoying this. I'm glad I chose this, and I'm reading it so fast that I might actually have another book to read after my third choice for this. Oh my goodness. I just finished Kill for Me, Kill for You by Steve Cavanaugh. This was so much fun. It took a few turns that I wasn't expecting, and at one point I was like unsure about the direction of this and whether or not I was going to like it, but I'm giving this book 4.25 stars. This was such a ride. Honestly, a couple of the twists I guessed, but obviously there were going to be some that I didn't. One of them kind of just went over my head and I wasn't very impressed by, and I didn't understand, which is why it's not quite a 5-star read, and I'm like not super happy with how it wrapped up. But going going along with this was so cool, and realizing some of the things about how they all came together was so good. The only thing is that this book takes place in New York City, where I live, and apparently a lot of Steve Cavanaugh's books also take place in New York City, and apparently he was writing books that take place in New York City without having ever visited New York. This one I think he had at this point, but you could tell that it's kind of written in the point of view, or like talked about by a tourist. Like the lingo is not quite there, or like the terminology is low-key incorrect. So that kind of irked me a little bit, but overall still a really good read that I finished in a day. It is currently 1:36, but I'm not too tired yet. I'm kind of in that zone to read, so I might end up starting my new book. Hello, it's much later in the day. I woke up, read a little bit more of romantic comedy. I did end up starting this before I officially went to bed, but I did stay up until 5 a.m. finishing this and then starting a little bit of romantic comedy before I like officially got super tired. Also went grocery shopping. I did a little bit of prep for dinner today. Chicken is marinating and I do need to get that started, but I've been editing my video, so I haven't read a lot today, but I also forgot that this already counts as today. I guess we can talk about this. Look at my dog-eared tabs. I don't know if you can see that. Those are all the parts where I cried or teared up. I never dog-ear my pages anymore, but it just felt right with how emotional this book was making me. And also, I can't remember where my sticky tabs are. I'm not really an annotate your book type of person, so I don't really have those on hand. I think this is definitely something I would revisit and annotate and tab. This book, if you don't know what it's about, is similar to our world, our regular little world, and there is a mutation, a disease that you can have, a mutation more correctly, where you can turn into an animal. And in this case, it is a love story. We're following Lewis and Ren, a new couple, and Lewis has been diagnosed into turning into a great white shark, and it's about the process of him going through that and how they're dealing with that in their relationship, and eventually he has to be obviously released into the wild. This book was split into 3 parts, I believe it was. The first part was definitely moving me. I definitely cried the most. That part that you saw, that was part 1. The other part of learning more about Ren and her history and her relationship with her mother, her childhood, her like weird friendship. She calls her a tiny pregnant woman, I think, who is pregnant with twin birds. And the third part kind of just goes back into Ren's life, into the after of what happens where she's alone and she's not with Lewis anymore. But it also visits Lewis being alone as well in the ocean as a shark, but not fully. He still has his like human mind. And it was such an interesting concept, and I think that it just fell really easily into that world that it was just believable. And this is Emily Habeck's debut novel. I've heard a lot of people do cry with this, and I definitely did. I literally read this 405-page book in one sitting. I didn't even want to go to the bathroom because I just wanted to keep reading this. I stayed up to read this in one sitting. I'm shook. I don't know what's going on. I'm in such a kick because I read Kill for Me, Kill for You in one day as well. I just truly love this. Oh, I forgot to say I automatically gave this 5 stars. I felt like that was kind of obvious. Oh my god. I'm sad I didn't read this last year. Like, voted this for book of the year. It's just a finalist. Oh my god. I truly loved this one. I did end up reading this book in under 3 hours. I was listening to a playlist that someone had created, and that one I hadn't quite gotten through, and I think that was 3 hours, so I felt really amazing about that. This book is written in mostly prose, and some of it is written as a play as well, because Lewis is a failed actor turned high school theater teacher. But a lot of the chapters are quite short and they look like this. They pack more of a punch. They're very lyrical and beautiful, very easy to get through. It just made it so much easier to get through. I haven't had a 5-star in a while, so it feels really good to have this as well. I chose to pick up romantic comedy. Oh, Oh, romantic comedy next, because I already finished the books on my TBR that I wanted to catch up, and so I have this on the backlist. This is an April book from 2023. It is similar to like SNL. There is a late night show called The Night Owls that is a late night live comedy show that airs every Saturday, and Sally Mills is one of the sketch writers. She hears that one of her fellow writers and friend Danny Horst is dating one of the past guest hosts, who is a glamorous actress, and he's kind of like this average dorky looking man at the show. She's wondering how these gorgeous accomplished women get romantically involved with these plain men, and she creates a sketch out of this called the Danny Horst Rule, named after her friend and writer. And then comes Noah, who is the new guest host for that week. They're working together, hitting it off to create sketches that he will be in. He's like this big time musical artist, and she's thinking that maybe there's something between them. I know part of this takes place during COVID, so that should be interesting. I've only read 50 pages of it so far. I'm hoping that I could read about 50% of this and then 50 tomorrow, and then I'll just finish off the vlog because I'm reading 4 books. So far, it's good, I guess. We've met the guests, we've met Sally, obviously. We're kind of learning about the schedule of how the show works and the late night hours that they pull. I kind of don't like how this is split up because there's no like chapters, they're just breaks like this of how the day is going. There's no like clear place for me to stop. It just feels like one endless book. I have read books from Curtis Sittenfeld before and liked them. This one's just a little bit more different than the other ones that I have read by her. I've read quite a bit, but I find myself skimming a lot of the time because I'm getting really sleepy and I'm finding this a little bit boring. But at this point I feel like it's a little bit too far gone for me to DNF it, as I'm almost 200 pages in. I'm now in chapter 2, which is long because they're parts. That's why it makes it seem like it goes on forever, because there's only breaks for like the dates and the times. And now part 2 or chapter 2 is going into the COVID, and this is when Sally and Noah are exchanging emails talking about how they're spending time in COVID, which is interesting hearing like other people's stories, especially because they're spending COVID in other parts of the country. I don't have like too much left. I read my goal for today also. I am kind of getting really disappointed with this. It's quite boring. Like, I'm not really seeing any of the chemistry between Noah and Sally. I wouldn't really call this a romance. On top of that, I don't think that there's any kind of fun banter to play off of this, which is why it makes it even more boring, because there's nothing to make up for the fact that it is boring. The excitement of coming on to do the sketch was like kind of cool at the beginning, and then it just lags, and now I'm just like reading about all of this backstory. The emails are so fucking long. I don't really see this going very well, and I had high hopes because I was on such a high. Like, I had a book that was 4.25, a book that was 5 stars that I really loved, and I really wanted to like this one, especially since I've had this since April of 2023. If this is what it looks like to flirt as a middle-aged adult, it's boring, and I think dating at this age sucks. I don't even think they're that old. I think they're like mid-30s. But it's so dry. Like, there's nothing interesting. Explain to me why the paragraph is that long. This. And there's no chapters. It's just endless. It just keeps going. Why? But I have 90 pages left, so there's no way I'm gonna DNF this now. I'm just gonna like skim through. I'm here to wrap up a little bit early. I thought I would do this over a week, but I've now moved on to a non-book of the month book, just so that this vlog doesn't get too long, and because I have other ideas for the other book of the month books that I have on my shelf at the moment. I'm closing out. I have this in a stack here in the order of their ranking. So we have at the bottom The Mayor of Maxwell Street, because I DNF'd it. Romantic comedy was unfortunately 2 stars. I really did not like it. It didn't get better by the end. I feel like I should have DNF'd it. I didn't feel like there was any sort of romance or chemistry enough for this to be a book. It seemed real lifey, but I didn't really understand their communication, like why that began, and then everything just sort of snowballed and went too fast. I gave The Fury 4 stars. I feel like Alex Michaelides is still an author that I would still enjoy. Kill for Me, Kill for You, read that in a day. Gave that one 4.25 stars. And lastly, Shark Heart by Emily Habeck. I gave automatically 5 stars. Cried so much. It's a new favorite of mine, absolutely. I read 4 books in 4 days, actually. I hope you all enjoyed. Let me know what you liked, the parts that you cried at in this one, because I just want to talk about that with somebody. And I'll see you all in my next video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.